Hi, my name is Larissa, and this is the Eczema Diaries. So before I start out telling you why I decided to start this channel, I thought I would give you a little bit of background on who I am and my journey with eczema. So I was diagnosed when I was fairly young, and at the time the doctor told me, you know what, just use hydrocortisone, go down to the local pharmacy, they sell it right over the counter, and just put that on those patches and they'll clear up in no time. And that's what she did. After bath time, I would just get a little slathering where I needed it, and usually it would clear up within a few days. And that tended to work for me until I was about like 6 or 7 when the flare-ups started to subside quite a bit. And by the time I was 10, they were pretty much gone completely, and I didn't really experience anything again until I was about 16. And when I was 16, I started noticing that I was getting the flare-ups in those same spots. So in the insides of my arms, in the backs of my knees, and, as a teenager, I wanted to wear the cute little flirty dresses and the shorts, and the flare-ups were just really cramping my style. So I decided to bring it up to my mom, and I was like, what is this? How do I get rid of it? How do I fix it? Like, I'm putting lotion on it. It's not going away. Like, well, what gives? And she was like, oh, that looks like eczema. And you used to have that when you were a kid. Like, let's set up an appointment with a dermatologist and they can tell you for sure. And I think that's just the best move to do. So that's what we did. And I went to a dermatologist who was located right outside of Los Angeles. And that should have been an indication alone when I walked into his office, like, not the dermatologist for me. Like, everything on the walls was like ads for Juvederm and Botox and like lip fillers. And here I am like, I got this rash. Can you help me? And it wasn't going to be the right fit. But I didn't know that. I thought like, okay, well, he obviously does some skin stuff. Like, he's called a dermatologist. So I went in, sat down in his chair. He looked at it and was like, oh yeah, that's eczema. But no big deal. Like, I'm just going to give you a topical cream. You put it on as you need it, and it'll eventually go away. And then you can just repeat it when you keep getting little flares. And so I was like, okay, sounds easy enough. And he prescribed me a topical steroid, and it was actually the highest potency on the market. Didn't know that at the time. Otherwise, I probably would not have used it. And when I would put it on, I would notice that it thinned my skin really bad and really quick. And my skin actually ended up looking a lot worse than it did with just the eczema, to the point where like I would put it on at night, and then the next morning I'd wake up and my whole arm would be white in the area and just dry and flaky. And then as those flakes fell off, it would be bright red. And I was like, this is worse than the actual eczema. Like, I will just go back to putting my moisturizer and my Vaseline on and call that a day, because like, this is miserable. And so I stopped using it, and I stuck to the Vaseline and like the Aveeno or whatever I was using at the time. And that seemed to work until I went to college, and I went to school at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, which is a huge agriculture school. And as awesome as that is, it also means that there were a lot of animals in the area. They were constantly growing crops, and there were pollens in the air, and it just felt like I had hay fever 24/7. And on top of that, my skin was freaking out. Like, for the first time in my life, I actually started having really dry skin under my eyes, and my neck started getting really flaky. And the same areas of my arms were breaking out, but to the point where they would actually like crack open and bleed. And I was like, what is going on? Like, this is supposed to be like the time of my life where I have the best skin. Like, what? And I was home visiting for a holiday, and I brought it up to my mom again. I was like, hey, it's back. Like, what the heck? I don't know what to do about this. I don't want to use that other topical cream that I was using because it was miserable. And I definitely don't want to put that under my eyes. Like, there's no way. And so she had said, well, you know what? There's this other dermatologist that I went to not too long ago. You should check her out. I'm sure she'll give you something that will work for you. And so that's what I ended up doing. I went to see her, and she was actually really awesome. when I came into her office, I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, I'm miserable. Look at me. And she took a look and she was like, oh yeah, ow. Like, let's figure this out. And when I told her the prescription that I had been on from the last dermatologist, she was like, wait, what? Like, that's what they put you on right away? That's not right. Like, I don't know why he would start you at the highest potency. Like, we need to start you low and then we can always work up, not the other way around. And so she ended up prescribing me this fluocinolone acetonide, and it's 0.01%. So it's actually one of the lower grades. And it is a topical steroid, but it's a topical oil. So basically the consistency of like baby oil. So that was actually really soothing when I would have a flare up. I would just put that on after a shower and it would soak in really quickly. It wouldn't be like sticky or stingy. It was just like really, really smooth. And so I actually used that for quite a while. And it wasn't frequent at first. It started out that I would only put it on when I really needed it. And that the first time I used it, it cleared my skin up probably for like 2 months. And I would only use it every so often. The first time I even got that, I only had to get it refilled like 2 years later. But then it actually started, I actually had to start using it more. And not only was I using it more frequently, but I was having to use it on new parts of my body. So in addition to the arms, neck, and like facial area, it started spreading to like other areas of my face. So before it was just like under my eyes, but now I was starting to get it on like my forehead and like my temples and the sides of my cheeks down to my jaw. And on top of that too, it was like on my back. It was on like my thigh part of my leg, which had always been just on the backs of my knees before that. So super, super spready, not cool. And I kept using it and kept using it and thinking like, well, at least it's helping. Like, at least I'm putting it on and in a couple days it clears up. But I didn't really think much about the fact that, okay, that's fine, except for the part where 2 weeks later, you're going to need to use it again in the exact same areas and with like no possible trigger in sight. So I ended up doing a little bit of research, and that's when I came across topical steroid withdrawal. And for those of you who don't know what that is, it basically means that your body becomes addicted to the steroid, and when it doesn't have it, it begins to flare, and that's what causes it to go to the new areas of your body. It's actually called red skin syndrome once you go completely off steroids, and it's super uncomfortable. So topical steroid withdrawal is when you cut yourself off cold turkey. You decide just like, okay, I'm not doing this anymore. And no matter how bad it gets, you don't put that steroid back on. So that's what I'm doing right now. And it's uncomfortable. Like, there are days where I will wake up and my skin is hot to the touch. Like, you can feel the heat radiating off of it. And it's just bright red and stingy and achy. And you can see where I've scratched. And there's actual scratches that are like oozing. And it's awful. And then once that heals, it turns into this like really, really dry, tight feeling where everything is just like white, dry, tight. And to the point where if you rub your fingers over it, you're like, oh, flaky, gross. So yeah, it's not fun. It hurts. It's awful. And some days it's just like really hard to even look in the mirror. Like, you see yourself and you're like, oh man, like, I'm not going out. I'm not going to that function that I said I was going to go to. Siri. So what was I saying? Oh yeah, you get really caught up in what your body's going through. But ultimately, that's you healing, and that's your body regaining control and regetting those functions and that chemical balance working again. And just to verify that I was doing the right thing for myself, I decided to make an appointment with a naturopath, which I will do a whole separate video on because she gave me a lot of really useful information that I do want to share, but it'll take up way too much time. So long story short there, she told me like, yes, you are doing the right thing. This is exactly what you should be doing. You're on the right track. And just walking away from that meeting, I was really inspired and encouraged to be like, okay, let's do this. Like, I'm in it now. And I started doing more and more research to try and get as many tools as I could in my arsenal, knowing like, okay, like what moisturizers should I be using? Should I be taking hot or cold showers? And what are wet wraps? And oh my gosh, like there's this whole new world that I didn't really even know about. And a lot of it has some conflicting information. And I think that's generally because this whole TSW eczema journey is so different for everyone. So something that works for somebody may not work for somebody else. For example, I cannot use coconut oil for the life of me. Like I've put it on my skin when I'm broken out before, and it just makes it feel tingly and like my skin can't breathe, and it's awful. So that doesn't work for me. But for other people, I know that coconut oil has been extremely helpful. So it's just one of those it's one of those things where you just have to try a lot of different options and see what works for you. But that being said, like maybe there are options out there that I don't know about that I'm not trying. And if we can all kind of come together as a community and share our resources and share our learnings and just really be there for each other, then I think this is going to be a little bit easier anyway. And for people who are a lot further along in their journey, maybe they can share their tips and insights that they picked up along the way that people who are just starting out like me can know earlier on, so they're set up for success, basically. And the final thing I really want to do with this channel is I want to bring in experts. So I want to bring in people like the naturopath who can come in and say like, oh yeah, I've dealt with this before and I've seen this and these are my general findings, or these are the things you should try. And I think that would be really helpful because I know that there's a lot of people who can't afford those resources, or people who don't have access to those types of things. So that's really my goal here. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, I would love if you could subscribe and give this a thumbs up. And I'd love to hear from you in the comments too. If there's something that you've really been thinking about, or if there's a curiosity you have about this whole topical steroid withdrawal or eczema, like maybe you are still using your steroids and maybe you want to learn a little bit more about TSW before you take that leap. Like that's totally fine. Just come to us, come to me in the questions. I'm happy to answer and or at least point you to some of the material that I found that was helpful. I just really want this to be a solid resource for people. So there will be more to come. Thank you so much for watching, and I can't wait to continue to share information and work with this eczema warrior community. Like we've got this, guys, you know, we're going to push through, we're going to heal, and we're going to be happy. All right. Have a good one. Bye.